Talkin Dawgs is live from Choctaw County, Mississippi. Robbie Falk here for another outstanding episode that we have on the way here on YouTube. I appreciate you guys for checking in, for being involved, and for being here. Right now, we don't have a whole lot of people on, but we're going to get there. This is the end of the work day. We just started the live chat, and we will get some people in here shortly. Tonight, we're going to talk a lot about what went wrong for Mississippi State and Arizona State, what they can do to have a much better Saturday for them this week against Toledo, and kind of where things stand for Jeff Lebby and company. I do want to kind of address where things are with this program and where things could potentially be going, what the expectations should be, how alarmed you should be, things like that. We'll discuss all of that here on Talkin Dawgs. Before we get rolling tonight, I do want to thank you guys for being here as usual. This is a weekly event. It's usually on Monday night. I apologize for not doing it this past Monday, yesterday, but had to go cover a high school volleyball match. And here we are. So from here until the end of probably baseball season, we will try to do this every single week where we're talking with each other, and it's not just me talking to myself. I do enjoy doing this with you guys and giving you guys an opportunity to ask questions or comment however you want to do things. So first of all, that's kind of bugging me, but there's just a lot to talk about in terms of Mississippi State and kind of where they are right now with Jeff Lebby. And I do think that it was kind of eye-opening in a lot of ways. That second game, after you blow out an FCS opponent and you play a Power 4 team, or in Arizona's case, you go from Group of 5 to Power 4, that is always a very telling ball game. It's your measuring stick ball game because you're just infinitely more talented usually if you're a team like in the SEC or Big 12 or ACC. You're usually playing – the vast majority of teams are playing far more inferior opponents in week one. And that second week, normally, and in Mississippi State's case, is against a more competitive football program. And even though Arizona State won 3 ball games last year and they were kind of a disaster after Herm Edwards, Kenny Dillingham showed marked improvement with that first game. No matter what you think of Wyoming, and they got killed by, but they didn't get killed. They lost to Idaho, who's the FCS team. No matter what you think of that, they came out and dominated that football game. And I think last week when we got into this and we started kind of previewing that, we talked about Arizona State as a much improved team, and that was not going to be an easy ball game and not going to be an easy win like most of us projected preseason before we actually saw this team play. So I think what you saw was, a team that appears to have its crap together in Arizona State with Kenny Dillingham in year 2. And this is year 2 of the system, and it doesn't necessarily compute to the normal, year 2 of a coach because you have so many new faces over there at Arizona State. But there were key players back from last season in Kenny Dillingham's team, and this is year 2 for him. He learned a lot in year 1. I'm sure Jeff Lebby's team is going to look a lot different next season than it does this year. But I think you did see a team that was a little more prepared on both sides of the ball. Mississippi State looked a little shell-shocked on defense. Coleman Hutzler struggled to adjust to what Arizona State was doing. I think Arizona State was shocked that Mississippi State was playing them defensively the way that they did. After the game, Cam Scatabo, the guy who rushed for over 260 yards against Mississippi State's defense, he said he was disrespected with the front that Mississippi State showed him. Mississippi State showed a front that is not conducive for stopping the run if you don't have the meat up there, and they don't have the meat. They don't have the depth. They don't have the talent. They don't have, quite frankly, the experience. And all night long, or at least until the second half, Mississippi State showed a 3-man front, maybe one linebacker in the box. Isaac Smith is making 17 tackles at safety. it was just it was disastrous from in all fronts. They didn't execute. The game plan was not good. The adjustments were not good. I thought second half the adjustments were okay. They kind of got back into the game a little bit because they were able to get some stops on defense, and the offense was able to start getting something going too. So it was disappointing to see Mississippi State defensively. Jeff Lebby said they missed 25 tackles and had over 200 yards after contact. That's inexcusable. I don't care if you're playing Alabama circa 2009, 2010, when they were at their peak of running the football, with all those guys they brought through with the Trent Richardsons and the Eddie Lacy's and the Derrick Henrys. You shouldn't miss 25 tackles in a ball game. That was just pitiful for Mississippi State. Cam Scatterbo, in the ball game, 33 carries for 262. Just embarrassing to not be able to stop that. And then the quarterback, who was not very good, 10 of 20 for 69 yards. Awful numbers from a passing perspective. He scrambled for 72 yards in the ball game and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it was just bad. And I won't go too deep into just breaking down the game per se. You can go back and watch my reaction video. That thing has gotten a lot of activity, and the comments are kind of getting crazy. But you can go kind of see my thoughts on that I gave the day after I slept on it. I wanted to kind of collect my thoughts a little bit and not be so emotional going into it. And the day after, it still was kind of an embarrassing performance for Mississippi State defensively. And then offensively, you didn't really do anything to the second half. You had negative yards rushing in the first half. You finished with just 24 yards rushing against Arizona State. I mean, just did not win the line of scrimmage on either side of the ball. Blake Shapen was okay. He had the fumble that led to a touchdown. That was big, but I thought the second half was pretty good. 3 for 268 and 2 touchdowns. Still no interceptions. Kevin Coleman had the big 80-yard touchdown, but the other 3 receptions went for 23 yards. You got Kelly Akari back. He only has an 18-yard catch. You want more from him. Sadi Traore dropped a big pass, but I thought he got going a little bit as the game went on. 3 catches for 33 yards. Need more from him. And Jordan Mosley, 4 catches for 58. You missed a extra point in the ball game. I mean, State just not playing clean enough football at this point. And it's got to be better. It's got to be a lot better for the Bulldogs if they want to go bowling. And now you got to make up a game somewhere. I mean, this was a game you had to get to stay on track for a bowl game. You're trying to get to 6 wins. You had to get this one to feel really good about it. And now your percentages to get to a bowl game have dropped significantly. You're going to have to go upset. I mean, and this is with projecting that Mississippi State can beat Florida and Arkansas, and that's not a given. Even playing at home, Florida has some pieces. DJ Lagway had a huge game. I don't know what they're going to look like whenever they come here next week. It appears Graham Mertz is going to get another shot after being out. But, DJ looks like the guy over there. I mean, he had a huge game against Sanford, I think it was. So that's not going to be an easy ball game. Arkansas looks incredibly improved. They should have beat Oklahoma State the other day. Their offense is going to be really difficult to stop for Mississippi State. So that's just, if you count those 2 games and then you count State beating Toledo, if they can do that, and then UMass, that's still short of a bowl game. You're going to have to make it up somewhere with Texas A&M. I mean, we're probably looking at A&M, Missouri, and Ole Miss just because it's a rivalry game. But, I mean, A&M and Missouri are the 2 closest games that you can look at just because they're at home. And I do not think it looks good for State as far as getting to a bowl game right now. So gonna have to make it up somewhere along the line. You're gonna have to make it up, and doing it against the schedule that's coming down the line is going to be difficult. But this is kind of part of the growing pains of Mississippi State in year 1 with Jeff Lebby. And I think that we've all kind of discounted Mississippi State's rebuild here. Jeff Lebby inherited, quite frankly, the recruiting has not been good from the last two coaching staffs. They were kind of living off of Joe Moorhead recruits, which feels strange to say, but some of their best players have been Joe Moorhead guys. So it's very difficult in 1 year to install your culture, install your offense and defense, and do it with a first-year head coach and a first-year defensive coordinator. That's really difficult to do. So I think that fans are going to have to be really patient, and that is even more difficult to do in this day and age. Got to be patient, and then the staff has got to be able to go out after this year, get some big time recruits this offseason, get some players out of the transfer portal, and show too this year that this offense is going to be able to do some big things. And I think it will, but you're breaking in four new offensive linemen, but basically five new starters. Albert Reese started 2 games. Those guys are kind of struggling with the continuity right now. You can see that. The defensive line is kind of a mess. And by the way, Eric Taylor is no longer with the team. Jeff Lebby said this week. Calvin Dinkins and Deontay Anderson, they're anticipating them not playing, but nothing final yet. That's 2 other pieces. I mean, you're having to rely on a true freshman for a lot of snaps and Kyle McClendon, some redshirt freshmen like Joseph Head having to come in there and give you some good minutes. So I think in time this team can be really good, but this year is not the year. This is not the year. I just don't see it. And they can upset some teams. They can play spoiler. They can get better and better as the year goes on. I think that's going to happen if they stay together. But expecting this team to win 7 or 8 games, that was never a great expectation or one that made any sense. And, a lot of the media projected 6 wins for Mississippi State, at least here. And that was with Mississippi State beating Arizona State. I think that was key in it all. And now doing that, I mean, I've kind of adjusted my thoughts. 4 or 5 wins is kind of where I am with this team. And if they're able to pick up an upset somewhere, then great. But it's tough to imagine getting to 6 at this point. But you cannot slip up anymore. UMass and Toledo, those are must wins. You cannot lose those games whatsoever. And then you're trying to find, at least 2 more wins in there to get to 5 just to feel really good about things. I mean, this is as big of an uphill climb, especially this early in the season, as I can remember for Mississippi State. And it's just because it's not so much about Mississippi State as it is the schedule that they have. Because I do think that State is going to get better and better. But the schedule that they have is impossible to navigate. Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Ole Miss on the road. That I don't know who made this schedule, but it's brutal. I don't know what Mississippi State did to them, but State's definitely hurt someone along the way to get this kind of schedule. It's incredible. All right, so we're going to start taking questions. And we got a few in the chat already. If you guys have any questions or comments, drop them in. Even if they're just your thoughts, would love to hear them. It's not just a Q&A thing with me because I'm certainly not an expert by any means. So I'm just here to talk. So we'll start with Mason Welch tonight. Is David Turner a good D-line coach, or did he get lucky landing generational talent? I think there's just too many guys in there that he recruited to suggest that he didn't have something to do with it. And then he's had a good resume of developing players, but I certainly think that at least his style or his thoughts on recruiting either needs to be adjusted, or you need to find somebody else. Because if it is, that he just doesn't like the transfer portal, or he doesn't like guys looking for money and stuff like that, that ain't going to fly anymore. There's no more just getting guys that want to be here or getting guys that have good attitudes. I mean, I love that, and I think that that's a admirable thing. But if you want to win in this league, you're not going to do it just with guys that want to be at Mississippi State. I mean, that hurts to think about if you're a Mississippi State person, but you cannot win anymore with just picking and choosing, the good guys or the guys that aren't looking for money. It just isn't going to happen. If you aren't willing to go out in the transfer portal and play that game, you're going to have very little success in the Power Four. And like I said, that's a tough reality at this point, but that's where things are in college football and in college sports. You can't win anymore without doing what you have to do in the portal. And there's a lot of coaches that hate that. I would venture to say just about every coach in America hates the transfer portal, hates NIL, hates the current landscape. But there are coaches that are gritting their teeth and doing it and doing what they have to do, and those are the coaches that are winning. So you got to do it. David Turner's either got to turn around and do that in this next transfer portal class and this next high school class, or State's got to find somebody that'll do it because they cannot survive with this defensive line moving forward. The group that they have now, and I'm not saying there aren't some players in there that are going to help Mississippi State moving forward, but they're either really young or they're not SEC talent. And I like a lot of the young players, but they've got to get up to speed on the defensive line. Mississippi State has not been in this position on the defensive line in a while. This is a school that has been proud of the defensive linemen that they've produced. Right now, you have the highest paid defensive tackle in NFL history, and Chris Jones. You got another one that's one of the highest paid tackles in the league, and Jeffrey Simmons. You got Danico Autry. You have Fletcher Cox, who just retired, one of the greatest Eagles of all time. Pernell McPhee had an incredible career. Preston Smith. And all these guys have either been coached by David Turner or recruited by him, and he cannot sell that. That tells me that players right now, either he's not going after the guys that are willing to come here if Mississippi State plays the game, or they don't want to come here. And you got to find a way to get them here. And right now, the whole NFL thing is just not working. Just telling people this is who I got in the NFL, it's not working. It should. You have a coach that's helped get those players in the league. It should help you, but it's not. So you got to adjust the way that you're doing things. And either Jeff Levy's going to have to adjust that and get a new defensive line coach, or David Turner's going to have to adjust it. And David Turner is my all-time favorite. I think that he is the greatest defensive line coach Mississippi State's ever had. And the resume speaks for itself. But speaking as someone that's trying to get Mississippi State to be better up front, you got to figure that out one way or another. Rodney Rhodes, how much time do I have on once your rumblings tweet is posted to ask my question? A few weeks ago, I asked a question about 4 hours after the tweet, and it wasn't answered. Well, I don't. First of all, I don't ask the questions. That's Brian. He picks and chooses. So I don't know if you tagged him in that or not. If you didn't tag him in it, then he didn't see it, or we were kind of short on time and we had to get through questions. But you have plenty of time if it was 4 hours. I send that sometime on Mondays, and then we record on Tuesdays around lunch. So Jeremy, what are you doing here? Jeremy Miller's an LSU fan. What are you doing in here? Although he does believe State's going to beat Toledo. I think the State beats Toledo unless something goes bad wrong, but I certainly don't think I'm not coming into it thinking State's going to win by 50 or anything like that. I think it's going to be a tough team, a tougher team than like what Eastern Kentucky was, but I don't know. They still should win. Eric Price says doesn't see more than 3 wins, and you hate to say that. It's going to be difficult. I mean, you're going to have to win an SEC. You're going to have to win an SEC game to get to 4 if you beat UMass and Toledo. And you look at the schedule, Florida and Arkansas are your chances. You need to get those. Jackson, we got any tight ends that can play defensive line? Yeah, you might have to. I mean, they might have to figure something out and slide somebody over there the other side of the line. I mean, it's and there's some linebackers you could probably put at end or something, but they definitely have to figure something out there. Jeremy, everybody's schedule is tough in the SEC. It is, but this is one of the toughest. I mean, who else can say they have to go to Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, and Ole Miss? That's nuts. I mean, that is 4 top 10 teams, I believe. I believe that's right. I think all 4 teams are in the top 10. And you're playing all of them on the road. Well, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas. Oh, yeah. 4 top 10s on the road. And then you got Missouri, who's a 5th top 10. You have top 10 team you have to play. And they're no pushover. Those are 5 teams that are potential playoff teams. The state has to play them. It's crazy. But you're right. I mean, the SEC, if you look at every SEC schedule, it's not easy per se. But, I look at Texas, and Texas' schedule is, compared to Mississippi State's, Florida's, teams like that, it's significantly easier. And, I can't help but put my tinfoil hat on and say, are they trying to make sure they get Texas in the playoff? And then, Ole Miss is not incredibly challenging. Their toughest games are Georgia at home, LSU on the road. Maybe South Carolina looks a little tougher than it was preseason, but South Carolina and Kentucky on your schedule and scaring a whole lot of teams. Oklahoma at home, their schedule is not very difficult. So I don't know. It is tough for most SEC schedules, but Mississippi State just seems infinitely tougher than a lot of these other schools. C. Lee, I appreciated Lebby's comments about culture and leadership. He appears to be a real leader who gets it. Yeah, I am not in any way right now concerned about Jeff Lebby as a leader of Mississippi State's program. I think that I believe that their offense is going to be successful here. I believe the culture is going to be strong here. I believe they're going to play hard. The question is, are they going to be able? Is he going to be able to put together a defense year in and year out that's going to be able to slow down teams enough to where, his offense can put teams in a chokehold? Teams are going to have trouble keeping up because they'll get a stop or two, and there's continuously scoring points on offense. That's kind of the question. The question is totally on the defense for me. Is the defense going to be able to be competitive in this league? This year, I don't think that's going to be the case, and I haven't thought that's going to be the case. But moving forward, you can change things in 1 year on the defensive side of the ball. Can Mississippi State go to the transfer portal and in high school and JUCO too, can they get players that are going to come in here next year and make a difference? Because right now they didn't do that in the offseason. They didn't have the transfer portal hauls that they did on the offensive side of the ball. They got to have that on defense this year, and you might have to have some changes too in the coaching staff. That's going to be something that Lebby's going to have to do. Joshua Wright, who are the visitors visiting this weekend? Don't have a list yet. Paul Jones is the guy to go to for that. He will post a list. It's usually tomorrow or Thursday. He usually gets a list of guys that are going to be here this weekend. We know that Caleb Cunningham will be here. As of right now, Caleb told me on Friday that he plans to officially visit, and I think that's been the plan for several weeks. But I think that from what I've heard, Mississippi State's trying to adjust that, and they want him just to come in and maybe have an official visit another time. We'll see what happens there. But Caleb will be here this weekend, and we'll see what happens with that, the Alabama commitment. I got a chance to talk to him on Friday. I have a story this Friday on him and his thoughts on Mississippi State after I got a chance to watch him at his first home game at Choctaw County. Incredible stadium over there, by the way, in Ackerman. But yeah, Joshua, if you're not a member at Murner White Daily, I implore you guys to go ahead and sign up for that. I think we have a 10% off deal right now. We had a great deal. We had a 50% off deal for you guys, but that is up. We have a 10% off deal. You can sign up now if you are a new member, and you'll have stuff like those visitors list. You'll have that every week for Mississippi State home games. Paul usually has a really good grasp on that, so I imagine he'll have that this week at some point, either tomorrow or Thursday, I would imagine. Row, will the fans be patient with Jeff Lebby? That's the question, and that was the topic this summer. We talked about it a lot on Thunder and Lightning. We talked about it on here some. Fans are going to see what Ole Miss does, and they're going to be jealous of that. And I know there's a lot of people that don't want to admit that, but you will be. You will be jealous of the fact that your in-state rival is having a lot of success. They're going to be unless they collapse, they're going to be a college football playoff team, and they will probably win a game in the playoff. Just my prediction. They will win the Egg Bowl, my prediction. And we'll be happy to be wrong on any of that. But I am just going to go ahead and say that that's going to happen, and everybody is going to be looking at Mississippi State in this fan base and saying, why can't we have that? And the reality of it is you cannot build this into what you want it to be overnight. Ole Miss didn't do it. Nobody's doing it. You cannot make that kind of a change from one year to the next, where you're going from disaster, basically, with Mississippi State losing its head coach and then having to fire the next one in the middle of the season because he was inept, and having a 5-win season. You can't go from that to competing for a playoff. It's just impossible unless you have $10 million and you can go out there and buy people that wouldn't normally come here. I just don't think it's possible anymore. You can make some big steps forward. You can jump forward from one year to the next. And I think State has a chance to do that, even if it's not in the wins and loss column. But you've got to be patient with this. Mississippi State has got to see this through. They've got to have at least a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, to see if Jeff Lebby's the guy or not. And if he's not, then I think you know it. If you're not making any kind of progress, if you're not recruiting well, if your defense is a disaster, if your offense isn't what is promised, then I think we know where things are going. But calling for Jeff Lebby's head, which I haven't seen, but if State continues to lose games, people will do that. That's not going to work this time around. People have got to be patient. I still think that there's got to still be an investment in this program from the fan base, and that's a tough thing to ask when you're being asked to do so much already. But the revenue sharing will help too. But you've got to have everybody pulling in the same direction. And, from there, a lot of times comes success. See, Lee, I wonder what the Houston fans think about those Bar Bay bombs. Yeah, still not showing up. I watched a little bit of the Oklahoma game against Houston, and, I thought Houston's defense played really well. Houston's offense being that bad is kind of hard to believe, because that's been, an offense that's been fairly successful dating back several years. And Dana Holgorsen did a really good job there offensively. They've been kind of known for what they do on the offensive side of the ball, and they don't look good. And I think we can kind of find the common denominator there. Robbie, do you think WWE will get out of the 3-3-5? I think you meant we, I'm guessing. I thought bringing Jennings up in the second half showed a big difference. Yeah, they've got to show different looks. They're going to have to disguise their blitzes, show some stunts, some twists, do some different things on the defensive line and linebackers, bring pressure from – and they tried in certain instances to bring pressure from safeties, corners, linebackers. They just did not have a lot of success with it. And they got to figure it out. They got to figure out a way to scheme up what they have. Work with what you got. If Coleman Hutzler is able to do that and make chicken salad out of you know what with this defense, then I think that you have some things to be excited about next year because I do think State's going to upgrade their talent on the defensive side of the ball. But if they're just being stubborn and trying to run things their way, that's a massive red flag for me. If you can't realize what you have on the defensive and linebacker um, crews, and you're just constantly just doing the same thing over and over to no success, that is a problem. And we've seen that before on the offensive side of the ball. We haven't seen it much on the defensive side, and hopefully they get that figured out. Rodney Rhodes, do we have any draft eligible players on the roster who will get drafted? Yeah, I think so. There's some guys out there. You look at the wide receivers. I think Kevin Coleman certainly could get drafted at wide receiver. I think Kelly Akari could get drafted. Just looking at some of the players, some guys that are seniors. Corey Ellington, I think when he gets healthy and shows some tape, if he's decides to go pro, he could. I'm just scrolling through the roster, see if any pop out to me. There's a lot of players that some of the draft eligible. I mean, some of the guys I think are going to get drafted. They're not ready yet. Travion Williams, I think in a year or two is going to be a high draft pick when things really start to click for him. So yeah, I don't feel like scrolling through all this, but yeah, that's just a few names. C. Lee, do you think Matt Rule in Nebraska could be a comparison to Levy taking over at State? Nebraska took some lumps last year. Could be, but Matt Rule had done it before. That's the big difference to me is Matt Rule has done it before, and he's had some success as a head coach. Jeff Levy's never done it. This is his first job, so it's a little bit different. I still think that the comparison is Mullen, and it's a totally different era. But a guy that if he can show some positivity, moving in the right direction, the offense is exciting. You got some nice young players. Even if you get to 5 wins, I think that's something that you can really build on, and that's the Dan Mullen comparison to me. Roro, when did Deontay Anderson get injured? I have no clue. I never saw it. I don't know if it was in practice. It was just kind of like, Saturday, didn't travel with the team. So, I mean, we don't get a whole lot of specifics. And some of the guys that are injured, Levy doesn't mention, but that will change next week. They're going to have to give an injury report and say whether or not a guy is doubtful, probable, or out. So, looking forward to that next week. Joshua Wright, does Deion Sanders hang it up after this season? I don't think so. I think he'll go somewhere else. I think he's gonna see that Travis Hunter's gone, and you got Shadir Sanders moving out. It's already tough to get talent to Colorado. I think he's gonna try to find a new spot. And it just doesn't appear like that experiment is working extremely well. So I could totally see him going somewhere else, and that they are going to be absolutely decimated. It's going to be bad. They're going to lose pretty much everybody from that. all their good players will be pretty much gone. So it's not what you want. Roro, I get worried when people don't travel with the team. The next thing we know, they're no longer with the team. Yeah, I haven't heard anything like that, but then again, I didn't hear anything about Jeffrey Pittman, ahead of all that stuff, or Eric Taylor. Eric Taylor. So you never know, but I do think Deontay Anderson is an injury. based on what I've heard. And also, we know Calvin Dinkins was injured. Hopefully, they get back this week, and we'll see if that's the case because they desperately need some help on the defensive line. All right, guys, we'll cut it there. Got about 35 minutes in, so I appreciate the talk. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We are closing in on 900 subscribers, which I'm proud of. We started this thing up earlier this year, switched over from my YouTube to this one, and I appreciate you guys following over from there and being faithful and watching this and keeping up. It means a lot, and I'm trying to get to 1,000. That's my goal, to get to 1,000 by the end of the month, maybe in the next couple of weeks. I think that's possible. So that'd be great if you guys could subscribe. And we would also love to have you over at Maroon and White Daily, a community for Mississippi State fans, and the most passionate that there is, right there at Maroon and White Daily at On 3 Sports. So come check us out. We got the best recruiting coverage, the best basketball coverage on the network. We love our football coverage, football recruiting. Of course, with Paul Jones, baseball, we cover it all. So come check us out. We'd love to have you come join the message board, get in the conversation. Best message board in the game. You got to come check it out. So come do that today. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Subscribe to Thunder and Lightning. Listen to Brian Haydad and myself. We'd appreciate that also. And my last request is to have a great week. Storm's coming in. So there's going to be a tropical storm coming. If you didn't see, the Hardy concert at Davis or Duty Noble Field has been moved to Friday, which I think it should have been all along. The Friday of a game week makes perfect sense, but it works out in the end. Moving it from Thursday when the storm's supposed to be tracking into Starkville. It should be moved out as we stand today. The weather experts that have a pretty good grasp on when this tropical storm is going to hit landfall. It's usually about 72 hours out when you really start to kind of see a clearer picture. And it appears that it's going to be tracking tomorrow night, hitting, central Mississippi, North Mississippi. And then Thursday, most of the day, we're going to have some high winds and rain. So if you're in this path, praying for you guys. Hope you're all safe from it. We should see some pretty strong winds up here and heavy rain. So hoping everything moves out. We can have a good night of Hardy and Randy Hauser, a couple of Mississippians, and putting on a great concert at Duty Noble. I'm expecting a great crowd for that. And then Saturday, a great ball game between Mississippi State and Toledo. So I hope you guys enjoy that. For folks like Justin who just got in here, I'm about to stop this, and you can go back and watch this video in full. So if you missed anything, you can go back and watch what we've already talked about and get my thoughts and all that. All right, guys, appreciate you for checking in, and we'll catch you down the road.